Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Ani.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And I'm really excited to talk about our topic today. And so if, as a listener, if you are a person who has wanted more authenticity in your life and more purpose, we understand that to be able to really live your purpose and be in your authenticity, it means sharing things that can feel vulnerable to you. And in the spirit of that, we're going to share some more vulnerable stories with you today about our past. And we really want to inspire you and encourage you that as you share your authenticity out in the world, it's really powerful. We see this all the time in our programs, Brian, how one person's vulnerability can make such a profound impact with someone else. To be able to be seen and heard in your story and in your own perspective, by another human being can really open up so many insights. So we're really curious to know your insights after you hear some of our stories today. And we also encourage you to share your stories in your communities so that you can see the insight ripples that provides for the people who you're around.
Yeah, so the story we're sharing is something we haven't shared openly for lots of reasons, but we're also getting some pretty big signals from the universe that it's time to share this a little bit more openly. So we're going to talk about the big lessons from the spiritual awakening that we haven't told you about, and so Ani and I had an experience that we're gonna share and kind of give you a little bit more idea about to fill in maybe some of the gaps, because you've heard a lot about our professional experiences over the years and on the podcast, but you really haven't heard a lot about our personal experiences and how the programs that we've created at the Somatic Coaching Academy, both our certification programs and also the empowerment programs, coach programs that we run, have all really been informed by a key period of time in our lives. And we want to kind of fill in some of those gaps right now for you all. And I guess by definition, you could consider what we experienced as a spiritual awakening. Now, we don't use that term a lot.
But Brian does like to define things. So Brian, I'm very interested to know how you are defining spiritual awakening.
Well, I kind of looked it up, right? So there's a common kind of idea, what is a spiritual awakening? Because it took us a long time to really understand and figure out, and there's not a firm understanding around it even yet, what the hell actually happened with us. But by definition, if a definition of a spiritual awakening, this is the one I pulled from line. A spiritual awakening is a profound transformation where you wake up to a deeper reality, realizing you are more than your physical self and ego, leading to a shift in perception, purpose, and connection to life, often marked by questioning old beliefs, increased empathy, synchronicities, and a desire for authenticity. It's a journey of expanded awareness, moving from an egocentric view to a broader, more interconnected understanding of self, others, and the universe, sometimes gradual, other times triggered by intense experiences.
I was actually reading.
I would say what we experienced is basically that. Defined that way.
Yeah. Yes, and fits in with that. Yeah. I was actually reading about spiritual awakenings before our event time frame happened in our lives pretty profoundly. I was asking to know God, spirit, connection, wisdom. I was really asking for knowing the mysteries of the universe at a deeper level, very sincerely in my life. And I don't know that that meant that I could recognize, I don't think I could recognize what was happening when it happened, but I was so longing to know the universe better, you know? And I remember one of the texts I was reading at the time was by Carolyn Mace, who I read a lot of Carolyn Mace from when I was in college and through my 20s. I was reading a book called Entering the Castle, and a part in that was talking about how she's a theologian, so she speaks in the language of God, where we might use universe,
Mhm.
So she was saying God will ask you to do things that feel very humbling. And I would say for sure what we went through together had that element of it as a key element for
Mhm.
me. It felt very humbling. And I think that's one of the reasons why I, you know, haven't wanted to super talk about it for so long. Is it was a very like humbling experience.
Yeah, I would actually say for me, the relationship between humbling and humiliating
Yes, exactly.
is actually there's something in there because I felt like the experience on a lot of levels felt very humiliating to me,
Yeah,
which was also humbling. So, I mean, I think
they
they're
go
kind of the
together.
same root,
Yeah,
right?
they
Of
do have the
of
same
that
root.
experience for
Yeah.
sure. So before the event happened for me, I was really seeking relief from suffering, from physical and emotional suffering primarily. A few years prior to that, I had a pretty significant health crisis, which I've talked a lot about in other parts of the podcast. And so I started deepening my energy practices and meditation practices, and I kind of really discovered Taoism and Buddhism, and really started digging more into some of those philosophies to seek relief from suffering. And and so that's kind of what I was doing personally, kind of leading up to that, and a lot around stress education and those sorts of things. When we came together, and we co-started a wellness center in 2011 actually, right? We co-started a wellness center in
Yeah.
2011. I had been in private practice for about 4 years at that point in my own practice, my own PT and movement therapy and
Yeah.
massage therapy practice.
I've been in private practice just slightly longer, but I'd also taken some time off to have my babies.
Yep.
So I was, when we started the wellness center, I was kind of getting back in with sincerity because I had just been seeing clients sporadically ever since my kids were born. I couldn't ever completely give it up because it was so wonderful. But at that point was the time I was kind of entering back into work.
Yeah. So we had our separate businesses, and there's another third partner who had a separate business, and we ended up kind of cooperatively starting a wellness center in the town. And after about a year of operating independently, we decided to merge our two businesses into one business because it made business sense.
Right, and that kind of started because Brian had invested in a gym space at the wellness center, and you were busier than me. You already had kind of had some traction with your business, and I had a little bit extra time on my hands, and I needed some extra cash.
Mhm.
And I was following universal principles by reaching out and asking if you wanted me to manage the gym
Yeah.
because I knew that, kind of again, humbling myself as a very credentialed professional to manage a gym, clean the equipment or whatever needed to happen, and manage the people was kind of like quote unquote beneath me. But I was intentionally following universal
Mhm.
principles to reach out and ask if you needed help with that. And you said yes. And that was just about our first instance of kind of doing something really together, was running the gym. And I remember thinking to myself, it's kind of silly. We do really, really similar work.
Mhm.
Brian knows, I was new to the area still. Brian knows more people than I do. maybe we could even share clients. He also works a little bit more with the physical capacity. I work a little bit more on the emotional capacity. We really do kind of the same thing, and we're in the same place. I wonder if we should just combine our businesses. And up until that point, Brian and I were married to other people. We had our families, we had our lives, we were friends in the
Mhm.
community, and we were becoming friends too. Because at the center, if we would have lunch, we would, at the same time, for example, we would have a cup of tea and sit and talk about universal principles and
Mhm.
consciousness. And it was becoming like this fun friendship that we were cultivating. So the idea of going into business together just kind of seemed fun.
Yep. Yeah. And then
And then,
and so we made this decision to go to combine our businesses. And just a couple of days later, I was
well, you left to go
I
on a
left on a
work
work
trip.
trip. Yeah, I went on a
So
work
we
trip.
made the
I was on a
decision,
consulting trip.
and then you left on a work trip
Yeah. And
for a
and
few days.
and I was as I was on the work trip, I started to feel like my energy started to shift in some way that I had no idea what was going on. What I would say, I started to feel extremely, extremely anxious is the way I would describe it.
It was really hard to describe, which is another reason why it's just been challenging to describe and talk about. Both of us knew something was going on. We didn't know what was going on at all, but things were definitely different.
Yeah. So I had all this rising anxiety, and I'm doing these consulting trainings while I'm on this trip, and I'm feeling like more and more disconnected, more and more challenging to find words because this anxiety is just starting to overwhelm me. And one of the other features was I felt like I had this huge like hole in my chest, and that's all I can describe is like this massive hole in my chest. And so that evening, I was trying to go to sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. I was in a hotel and I had another consulting job the next day, and then I was supposed to travel back home driving, and I couldn't sleep. I had this massive hole in my chest, and I'm just overcome with anxiety. And as I'm laying there, it occurs to me that Ani is the only person who can help, let's just say, quote unquote, heal this incredible pain in my chest. And I got so freaked out with that, I immediately called my wife at the time and described to her what was happening and said, and I feel like Ani's the only person who can kind of help heal this. And I don't know what to do with this. I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm concerned. This feels like it's not all these things. And my wife at the time basically said she had a vision that this was going to happen. She kind of also had a vision that something massive was going to shift in our lives, and she hadn't shared that with me. But now she was telling me that it had. So the next day, I hadn't slept all night. I actually emailed Ani in the middle of the night, and you emailed me back that
This
you were
was
having,
before text,
yeah,
by the
you were
way.
actually had similar experiences going on.
So for me, anxiety would be a good way to describe it, but I wasn't feeling a hole in my heart. If anything, I was feeling kind of high.
Hmm.
There was increased energy. It felt weird. And I had maybe too much energy, like that kind of anxiety. And I was also starting to have some kind of like visions in terms of like animals, or I couldn't put, it was like having a dream. It was like a dream because like I couldn't like put any pieces together that meant anything at all.
Yeah. So the next day yeah, I go do my consulting, and I have people like I've been consulting with for years, and they're like, "Brian, are you okay? Like you don't seem right. You don't seem like you feel well." And I was all spaced out. I think they probably thought I was on drugs or something because I really couldn't focus. I couldn't articulate. I wasn't like I'm sure my eyes just looked wild. And I had all this energy and this massive hole in my chest. And all I could keep thinking is, I need to get home and see Ani. I need to get home and see Ani. She's the only one who can help with this. And so it was a 3 hour drive home. After consulting, I got in my car and just started driving right home to go to the office.
We were going to have a meeting to like talk about things or figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean,
Like, yeah, I wonder what's going on, sort of thing, even though I felt like I could have stopped at the hospital on the way home.
Right, right. Yeah. And so when we saw each other, that's when we knew things were different.
Yeah.
It was obvious that the two of us had some wild connection all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
Well, you actually had a vision before I walked in the door, right?
I did. It was like two snakes that were in the sand and they were slithering kind of in the same direction. And then they kind of came up through the sand and wound together. It was like and then the moment that happened, because I was waiting for you, I closed my eyes and had that vision. And then in a second, you opened the door and there you were.
Yeah. So as soon as I opened the door and we looked at each other, we both just broke down in tears. I mean, it was just like a very powerful, emotional moment, and we hugged, and immediately it felt like something in Ani's energy field like filled up that hole in my chest, and it was like Ani's energy field was merging into that hole and into my energy field, and I saw this column of light. Like I saw and felt like we were standing in a column of light that stretched, as far down below into the universe and up into the sky as high as it could possibly go. And the light was just filled with this supportive energy. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it was kind of like an ineffable kind of experience.
Yeah. And for me too, it was almost like we were separate that needed to like kind of come together as one. It was like having a whole piece of pizza pulled into two halves.
Yeah.
It just felt like I needed to kind of have you around or something. And like, yeah, like our systems were one system.
Yeah. Our two systems basically became one merged unified system,
Right.
right?
It was an incredibly disconcerting feeling having one never felt that before
Yeah.
and being two regular humans who had their feet on the ground and had just the other day been normal talking to each other, not feeling this kind of thing, to all of a sudden feeling like this other person is half of the whole, not having any context or ability to make any rational sense of that, but feeling from an embodied quality like it was the truth.
Yeah, like it really was the truth. So we literally stood there for 3 hours, 3 hours in this column of light.
And it was like it felt painful to
Pull
pull
apart.
apart,
Yeah, pulling apart felt very, very, very
like
painful.
physically painful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty rough. And so this was
So that was
March 20th.
so that was interesting.
Yeah, March 20th was the day that 2012 that changed our lives like really forever in that regard.
And it went on for a few months, not completely like that, but also this energy where we felt like we were these two halves of a whole. And actually, just to say this part of it now, the intensity of it didn't ease up until Brian and I decided that we were going to be life and business partners.
Yeah.
And it was like the moment we decided that we were going to be life and business partners, the intensity, thank goodness, started to go away because it was just so, it was like being plugged in to a high amplitude plug or something. It
Yeah.
was like
So,
constant.
yeah,
The moment
so
we made that decision, it
yeah,
started to
so
ease up.
after that 3 hour hug, we thought, okay, so that was cool. It's kind of over. Whatever just happened. But as more energy surged through our systems, um, what happened is this almost like energetic flushing started occurring. And what would happen is when there was this energetic flushing, we kind of went into like these 3 day cycles. And day one of the cycle would be, I guess you can consider like a trauma flushing. Like all of the energy would flush through and bring some old trauma up into our conscious awareness. And I'm having my own conscious awareness. Ani's having, we're actually on, we're each going through these 3 day cycles. But we're not going through them at the same time. And I'll explain that in just a second. So, like day one, I'd have this flushing, and an old trauma would come up into my awareness, and I'd be reliving the trauma,
Yeah. And
whatever trauma it was, literally reliving it,
right.
re-experiencing it
This,
fully.
you don't just mean in your head.
No, no, fully, body, mind, spirit, soul.
It was like experiencing a belief That's what it was
Yeah, it was
like.
re-experiencing the formation of the belief, I
Right.
would say. And so it might have been like a trauma I experienced in my own life, but it also might have been an ancestral trauma. I mean, I was experiencing ancestral traumas also. And they were just being just like flushed out of the body, and it was horrible. It was really horrible.
It was like going through the most intense healing retreat experience thing that I could possibly imagine, all within one day, and having no support
Yeah. Well, other than each
other
other.
than each other.
Yeah. And
Right.
so,
Like we told a number of different professionals what was going on with us, and basically no one could figure it out. And even folks who had been very close to me for a long time, who were, I'm thinking specifically about a shaman that I saw in the past, was like, you better watch out. Like, I don't know what's going on, but this sounds like, you could blow yourself up. Like,
right, pretty serious.
yeah. So it wasn't even like we tried to get professional help.
Yeah, we asked a lot of people, but no one really knew
Knew what
what
was
was going on. So day one would be this like trauma flushing. Day two was like enlightenment. Like literally after this trauma experience got flushed from the system and you were in hell, literally in hell, the next thing was you're in absolute heaven. And heaven by a sense of, I remember after each one of those trauma flushing experiences, being like outdoors and seeing everything as just a single unified field.
everything was so beautiful.
Everything was just so beautiful and clear as this unified field of energy. And it was just like patterns, right? I saw only energy. Everything was in patterns. Everything was connected. Everything was flowing into everything else.
We could in intuitively know, it wasn't really see, know the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
We could see the patterns of relationships play out and the patterns in nature. And
And I mean, my energy field is flowing into all the other energy fields. Like, with trees, my energy field is merging with trees or
yeah,
with the grass or whatever it was. And
guy,
and so that was day two. And then day three was kind of like an integration day, I guess, if you will.
it almost felt like things were going to go back to
Like
normal.
maybe this is over. Maybe this is over kind of day. And the next day would start again. And we are always off cycle. So like the day I was in hell, Ani was either in an enlightenment day or an integration day, and she could support me while I was like literally going through hell. And vice versa. When Ani was going through hell, I was in either my enlightenment day or my integration day, so I could support her. And we were the only two people on the planet who knew what the other person was going through because we were going through it cyclically together.
And other people were feeling ripples that they couldn't necessarily explain either. Some people were kind of on board with a little bit of the high of that experience. Like, for example, our partners at the time were having ripples of their own experience and were having their own experience with it. And then there were some people who were feeling the vibes and looking at us like there was a real problem.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they had all of their kind of stuff come up in a not good way. So the people around us were also feeling the ripples of whatever was going on.
Yeah. So this, um, you
They
know,
probably would have appreciated an explanation, but we couldn't
we
explain it
couldn't explain
ourselves.
it. We could not explain really what was going on. And so this, this really went on and very, very, very intensely for 3 months, for 3 months. And it wasn't over yet, though, even at that amount of time. I mean, because really what happened after about 3 months of not sleeping, of not eating, I mean, I lost over 25 pounds in those three
You're a
months.
much bigger guy before this
Yeah,
whole thing.
because I was just like all this energy was flushing through my system. And things just got so horrible, like even more painful. Those trauma flushing days got more and more and more painful. And the only sense of relief or ease was when we were together, right?
Right.
When we're just like sitting together or just hugging each other or like just being in each other's presence,
Space.
space. We just had to be in each other's space because, again, it's like every time we separated our space, it felt like we were ripping our energy fields apart and coming together felt unifying.
Stronger.
And so, what we would do is when one of us was in hell, the other one would just hold space and just be with the other person to let them kind of process through what they were processing through. in that regard. And this kept getting more and more and more intense. I mean, more and more and more painful. And to Ani's point, it didn't start to ease up until we decided that it was important for us to be together, not only professionally but also personally. The kind of the threshold point for me was, again, it got so incredibly painful. I remember I was laying in bed one night because I wasn't sleeping, but I'm laying in bed and my heart feels like, again, I had a lot of heart stuff go on with this experience. My heart felt so so it was being squeezed. It was being squeezed. It was like this connection that Ani and I had was wanting to expand in my body more, and the energy field wanted to expand more, but I had so much armoring in my heart because I did not want it to happen. I was fighting it with all of everything I
Every
had,
strength you had.
all the strength I had. Is like I was fighting it up around, this isn't right, this shouldn't be happening, I don't want this, like all those kinds of things. And I was literally at a place where I was just wishing I would die. I mean, it was so bad. I mean, the pain was so incredible. The physical pain, the emotional pain, the psychological pain.
Yours was showing up more as pain, and mine was showing up more as I really thought I was crazy. And I remember a day where our partners at the time and you and I were sitting in my backyard at a picnic table and trying to figure out what we were going to do, you know?
Yeah.
And the conversation finally we together made the decision that we were going to rearrange our lives, and you and I were going to be personal and professional partners.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but a little bit like just before that happened, just before we kind of went through this kind of conscious uncoupling process, I think is what they call it nowadays.
Now there's a word for it.
Yeah. Now
Isn't
there's a
that
word for
nice?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't a word for it. But right before that happened, I remember lying in bed and all this pain, and I had this vision of a black angel basically started tearing off pieces of my heart, like tearing the armor off of my heart. And I'm in bed like thrashing and like all this kinds of stuff. And I realized as I left the bedroom and I collapsed in the living room, just having like a psychological and emotional, like I don't know if we call it a crack, a breakdown, or whatever it is. And I realized at that point, like the universe was basically giving me no other option than for us to uh, merge our lives together. And after some very difficult hours of conversation with my wife at the time, who I can't share her story, but the conversation we had was we came to the point where we knew what had to happen next. We knew that the idea of conscious uncoupling was what we had to do, considering where she was coming from with things and where I was coming from things. And then we had this. We're sitting in the backyard, to your point, with our partners, talking about how we would go through this process of conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, to figure all the logistics out,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And so it remained pretty intense during for about another 3 months. So this whole kind of the whole really intense energetic experience went on for about 6 months of this trauma flushing and clearing and enlightenment and integration. And the crazy thing was like even with our patients, I remember working with my patients at the time that were coming in for like back and neck and shoulder pain.
Yeah, we were still needing to work.
Yeah, still working too, right? We're still working, but I had to be very careful about looking at people in the eye because I could look literally into the dysfunctional patterns in their energy fields. And I know some people weren't ready for that, weren't ready for me to ask them questions about the trauma that was actually at the core root of the pain they were experiencing. But I just started seeing everything as distorted patterns, like all people's trauma, people's physical pain. It was basically distorted patterns of energy in their energy fields. And being able to just look at somebody and just look into their eyes. Do you remember too? We had to wear sunglasses around each other.
I was
Like we couldn't actually look each other in the eye because
I
it was
was
too painful, it was too intense.
thinking about that because when we were sitting at the picnic table that day with our partners, we were wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We actually couldn't look at each other in the eye. There was something about maybe the eyes are the window of the soul or whatever it is,
that's what they say, Brian.
but with yeah, with patients, I could literally look into their energy field and cue them into their body of where the distorted pattern of energy was. And we had patients having spontaneous healings. sometimes you're sending a lot of energy through our patients, sort of thing.
I remember trying to get some support from a professional and asking them, I feel like I am reincarnating while I'm alive. Is
Mm.
that a
Yeah.
thing? And there's this concept called twin flames, which I actually haven't looked at in kind of a while, but basically means like two people share the same soul.
Yeah.
And I was
We're
trying
like,
to
is
get
that what's going
just
on?
trying to
Yeah.
get psychics to tell me like, is that what? And people were saying no.
Yeah. So
Still,
that's not what's going on. Yeah.
no one could explain that part of it.
Yeah. So something obviously created a uh activated, triggered, whatever you want to call it, like a massive energy flushing that we went through together, right? So we went through it in parallel and we were connected. Like our energy fields were entwined, were connected, and we're kind of going through each other's traumas also, right? We started experiencing some of each other's had experienced in the past. And it was just really, I can't even explain it, right? This incredible kind of connection, merging, bonding that just spontaneously activated on March the 20th, 2012. And we had to mindfully navigate this again because, we had partners, we had kids. Um, how do we mindfully do this reorganization of our lives? And so after 6 months, we decided to reorganize our lives. And so the intensity of that experience started to wane. However,
It was like a
the whole other
compulsion.
experience started.
Yeah, it was like the compulsion of whatever the kind of the spiritual awakening, that part started to
Yeah.
dampen down.
It's almost like, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what happened then is we needed to kind of rebuild and refigure out how to be a human being after all of those things happened. Um, and kind of the mundane reality of the reorganization that we had also gone through.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the universe actually, once the universe made us reorganize our lives, like created so much pressure, so much
So much
intensity
pressure.
to basically say, listen, you're going to go there, you're going to go there, you're going to go there, you're going to go there. Once the universe did all that organization, then that intensity of energy like went away.
It went away, and there was some kind of, how do I want to say this? Like some kind of supportiveness to being propelled through the experience. And then we had to kind of do it ourselves.
Yeah. So once we reorganized our life, and so Ani and I moved in together, and we started setting up structures to
Blend our
blend
family.
our family, co-parent with our partners, um, all those things, which are, if anybody's ever blended a family before, there's a reason they call it the blender.
Hats off to you.
Yeah, I mean, so raising and being with another person's
Kids.
kids and all that kind of stuff, right? It just
It's
brings up so much stuff. And here's the thing, though, because we went through this flushing, what it did essentially was flushed away all of the armor. And so we're now navigating like a very, very challenging terrain
with very sensitive
with very
systems.
sensitive systems, like very sensitive systems. And so, boy, yeah, very sensitive systems. And so we didn't have what we had before, when you run into difficulties, you can armor up, you can blunt, but we were just raw. Our systems were absolutely raw. It's almost like we were newborns,
Right.
like nervous system
Nervous system
wise,
wise.
while trying to raise children and run businesses and
And
rebuild relationships and all those things.
since the people who we had looked to for support in the past didn't know what was going on, we were very sure people didn't know how to help figure us
Yeah.
out at that point. And that is where all of the things that we teach came from.
Yeah.
Because we had to figure out how to navigate in the real world where, we're blending a family and trying to run a business and things happen and having these very, very sensitive systems. And so all of the sensation based strategies that we have developed and teach at the Somatic Coaching Academy came out of us learning how to be after that experience.
Yeah. So some of the things that we continued to develop, we had intellectual knowledge about before,
Exactly.
but not experiential
We had
knowledge.
tons of intellectual knowledge. In fact, it makes perfect sense for the two of us to have been in that position because we had all of this learned knowledge experience, and it even started kind of um, doing some of the tools with other people who had things that needed help, but now we needed help.
Yeah. And so we spent several years, well, since 2012, trying to explain what happened energetically, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, like all the things. And again, this has informed massively the work that we've done at the Somatic Coaching Academy. Again, both our professional and our private work that we do with people. And so some of the big lessons that I really learned from that experience that have come forward in the work that we do is that I know by experience. We talk about this in our programs, we've talked about it on the podcast, but I want to let you know why I talk about this is that I know by experience, I know this in my core because I've experienced this, that our core beliefs are woven into the fabric of our physiology. They're literally woven into the fabric of our physiology. And when energy flushes through that, it clears away the distorted energy in our system, the distorted energy that's associated with trauma and disease and dysfunction and those sorts of things.
And it takes a tremendous amount of energy for us to contain those
Yeah.
in any given day. And so, actually, when they are released, you have a tremendous amount more energy available to you.
Yeah. Well, also know just another big lesson, a knowing that we live in a unified field of energy. I have no doubt about that because I experienced it for 6 months. That and even now I'm not existing at that level of energetic vibration, thank God, because I wouldn't be able to function in the normal world by vibrating at that level of vibration. I think for people who do vibrate, they're not in the normal world. They're likely isolated because your system is so incredibly sensitive, so incredibly high. It's difficult to relate to people about the price of groceries when you're seeing everything as a unified field,
Well, Carolyn,
right?
one of the things Carolyn May says is that people used to go to monasteries to have these kinds of experiences, and now they happen in the middle of your life,
Mhm, yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So everything does indeed exist as a unified field, and everything is simply patterns in that unified field. And that's why they appear to us differently in our senses. But everything is connected, everything is merged, and these patterns flow in and out of each other. And disease is simply distorted patterns of energy. Trauma is distorted patterns of energy held in the energy field. Like that's just another knowing that I have. So when I'm talking about this with people, that's like the framework that I'm coming from a known experience of that.
Mm.
And I would probably say the last big learning last big knowing that I have that I want to talk about. I mean, I got a lot of knowings I want that I've had is that the universe does have a plan. Like the universe does have a plan, and the plan is usually around letting go of these distorted patterns.
And for most people, most of the time, the universe is giving us the opportunity to be enlightened to our plan in any given moment.
Yeah,
For us, it just got really, really super intense, but I watch it happen every single day. The universe is supporting your growth and development into the person and the purpose that you really, really want
yeah,
to live. And it shows up as nudges most of the
yeah.
time. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I was starting to get nudges about telling this story. That's why I decided that
Well,
we had to tell it. Because if we didn't listen to the nudges,
they get louder.
they get
And
louder.
one of the things that both of us have gotten better at since this experience that we call the vortex um, is paying attention to the nudges because we know the nudges are important and we know the nudges are spirit or
Hmm.
universe's way helping divinely put us into the right places at the right time. And so we honor nudges in we honor the
We honor
nudges.
the nudges. I mean, because we know the consequences of not honoring the nudges.
And for most people, it's not like you're going to experience something as intense as us, but like to Brian's point, the nudges become these painful things, whether they are physically painful or emotionally painful in our lives, that we're wondering, gosh, what can I do about this? What's the fix? How do I like make it stop? And the universe is speaking to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to kind of wrap this up, you mentioned this already, Ani, is that we do manifest most powerfully. Like the universe has a plan. And part of the plan is to let go of these distorted patterns of beliefs, of awareness, of dysfunctions, disease, whatever they are, so that we can manifest in alignment with our purpose. That's really what we're here to do. I mean, the universe will always support us in that. I mean, I have an absolute knowing about that
And
from
we're
our experience.
and we're always on purpose.
We're always on
And
purpose.
that's the knowing, one of the knowings for me from this experience is that we are always on purpose. So even right now, if you think you're not on purpose, you are always on purpose. And the nudges from the universe that show up are on
Mm.
purpose. And there's really no greater bliss, I think, than being in a place where you can always know that you're on purpose
Yeah.
and live with that certainty.
Yeah, and to let go of resisting your purpose, let go of fighting
Stop,
against
yeah,
your
stop
purpose,
fighting your
stop
purpose.
fighting your purpose.
Boy, that takes just so much energy that could be used for living your purpose.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're really interested to know your reflections on your purpose through the reflection of hearing our stories. So please go ahead and reach out, leave a comment, email us, info@somaticcoachingacademy.com. I know very well that some of our clients and students are going to post in the virtual network and let us know their reflections. We want to hear your reflections too. Hearing other people's stories gives us such a profound way to process and learn about ourselves and our own experience so that we can be centered in purpose. And we want to know about and hear about your purpose too.
Yeah.
So we look really forward to hearing your reflections.
Yeah. And so before we sign off though, Ani, I just want to say to you, I'm so grateful for you in my life. And I'm so grateful that you've been my partner on this journey and held such amazing, wonderful, powerful balance of space
Thank
for our
you.
growth together.
Thank you,
You mean the
Brian.
world to
That
me.
that means that means so much to you, and the same to you. And I kind of had no choice.
Yeah. I my I wouldn't expect nothing less for your answer. So I love you so much.
I love you too.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.